Pastor Sam, Tony, thank you guys so much for opening up your heart and home here. As Mary said, coming out here, and I've been out here a bunch of times, folks. We were talking with another, lovely young lady here about the Reawaken America tour that we did a couple of times here, actually. And then we came back out for other events to kind of force our way into California here. It's really not that easy. And, this business about getting into a church, right? You think that the churches would be like the place where they would open it up. So for Pastor Sam and everything that you're doing and what you're committed to do for your community, your local community, not just the church, but for the state and probably for the country. A couple of things, just briefly on the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance is an interesting pledge, right? And we take it for granted. It's 31 words, essentially written after the Civil War. This country didn't put the words "under God" into it until 1954. So think about that. This country was created on a set of Judeo-Christian principles and values. The Constitution is founded on those principles. And when I was telling Pastor Sam that when somebody tells you that we must separate church and state, or our system of government is a separation of church and state, that is one of the biggest falsehoods. It's a blatant lie, because our entire system of government was created, and all you got to do is study it, right? Which they don't teach in our school systems anymore. But if you study it like I have, dating back to the Magna Carta, the 1500s, the 1600s, and then all the way into the 1700s, and then our Constitution wasn't written over a 3-day weekend, right? It was written over the sacrifice of a lot of people, a lot of smart people, and then the sacrifice of a lot of young people. During the Revolutionary War, we lost about 7,000, which was a large number at that time. Compared to fighting against the greatest military at that time in the history of the world, being the British military, British Army, and the British Navy. So a lot is transpired by this idea of this Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so that's why we used to do it, like ingrain it into the kids in our school systems, and the situation that we face in this country right now is it's dire. We're at a grave moment in history. There was a study back in 1938 done by a guy. He wrote a book about it, about the rise and fall of nation states. And he took the top 7 empires that existed in the history of the world at that time. The Roman Empire, Athenian Empire, British Empire, right? And he looked at them. Ottoman Empire was actually the longest serving empire in the history of the world up till now, still is. So he looked at these empires and he said, what was the indicators of the rise and the fall, right? And particularly the collapse of empires, because we kind of look at ourselves, we're an empire of sorts, right? So the average, for all those 7, the average number of years that they lasted was what? What do you think? 250 years. Okay, 250 years. So here we are at a monumental moment in time, okay? And we have an individual who was shot in the head, okay? So whatever the rest of humanity thinks of this person, in this case, President Trump, who was our president, whatever they think about him, I know him, and this guy gave up everything. And if you ever met him, if you ever had a chance to meet him and talk with him, you'd go, this guy's a great guy. He's a really down-to-earth, really nice guy. And that's why you don't see any soldiers, or you don't see any cops, or the people that are the grassroots people in this country that ever really say, he's this or that, because he's not. And so I want to make sure, given any chance that I get, as I speak, to make sure that people understand what we are up against. And this is a good versus evil. So just a couple of stats, because kind of honing in on on what we're here for, this Get in the Fight Summit, and some of the things that you're going to hear about tonight, and then those that take the opportunity tomorrow to go through some of it's an incredible education. And maybe Mary, you get a few minutes to talk about, we're involved in lawfare. Okay, we go to the Supreme Court, we go to these appeals courts all the time, and we win. We win because we are dedicated, yeah. And like a lot of, I mean, I think other than I think our last 10, we join a case, right? Our last 10 were victories, and 8 of them were in the Supreme Court. So we're not, I'm patting ourselves on the back, but we don't go out and say, hey, look at us, look at us. We are like soldiers. We are going to dig in and dig in and dig in and keep fighting. Because I will tell you, and I mentioned this to our team today, and a note to everybody about this administration is taking on the scourge of child trafficking in this country like nobody. They are, and I know Kash Patel. I know Kash Patel very well. This is their #1 priority. So you're going to see more and more, attacks against this problem, right? But just in this state. So you got over 100,000 registered sex offenders in the state of California. That's one in every 400 people. Okay, so you guys know how packed this place is, right? 100,000 registered sex offenders, 1 in every 400 people. There's 240 registered sex offenders within 5 miles of where I'm standing right now. 240, right? Los Angeles, the bigger metropolitan and the county area, Los Angeles ranked second most registered sex offenders in the nation, right? And then Route 101, which is outside the door here, pretty much, is a child trafficking network that runs up and down this thing, and you just don't know it because if you're not paying attention to it, you hear about it, you read about it on a second page of a newspaper, or you see a blip on your phone when you're following something. I mean, we just haven't paid that close attention to it. You're going to hear things tonight from these guys, and so you'll probably hear some of what I say repeated. But this business about money, to use a child, you can use a child more than once. Okay, whereas you snort some cocaine or you take a drug, it goes away. It's done, right? But a child you can use over and over and over and over again. And all this business about parts of bodies, okay? So I'm so sick. I've been called every name in the book, okay? And the conspiracy theorist, right? I'm the chief. So you're looking at the chief conspiracy theorist according to the mainstream media, and I love it. I love it. So we have all kinds of things happening to children, right? And so what we have to do, and what we do with America's Future, is we're one among many organizations, but we're proud of what our track record is, and we do partner with other nonprofits who we vet to make sure that they are doing things. Because there are nonprofit organizations that are involved in this endeavor that are not good. There are churches and church associations that are directly involved in child trafficking, and they benefit tremendously by getting, hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases from the U.S. government, from taxpayers. And some of them are right out here. A lot of them are right out here, actually. So I mean, I could go on and talk about, 1,000 things. I think what we need to understand in our country is that, it's like I was just saying about the Pledge of Allegiance and a little bit of history lesson there and where we are right now. Our country is always at risk. We're always at risk because we have this thing called the Bill of Rights. We have this thing called the Constitution. We have this very open society, and that is our strength. But it's also our weakness because people, countries, ideologies, they go at those weaknesses in our system. And a weakness we look at as a strength, freedom of speech, right? And so, or freedom to do a lot of things, to be whatever, to color your hair whatever you want to have, fly whatever flag you want to have. You know, although I don't know if he signed it yet, but Trump is going to sign I think he's going to sign it as a felony offense if you burn an American flag. So, and everybody, you know, the crazies will say all kinds of things, but we have to look at this country and say, look, we don't want to. And Boone and I have crafted a couple of books about fifth-generation warfare, and it's not about, you know, going to a revolution like we had in the late 1700s. It's really, at this point in time, the revolution, and it's a counter-revolution that we are involved in. And it is about information, and it's about understanding, and it's about dominating a space that we can dominate, right? We the people. And we do that by exactly what we have been doing in this country, across the country, is challenging those who we elect. And some of it is, you know, I know I could spend all night here talking about elections. And I think that, you know, you're going to see, if you think the Russiagate exposure is a big deal, which it is, it's huge, but if you think that that is a big deal, wait until you hear about the 2020 election, okay? Because you're going to, I mean, we are experiencing something that a lot of Americans just cannot fathom. I mean, and here we are talking about the issue of children, right? And protecting children. I mean, we can't have a future. No country can have a future if you don't protect children. You just can't have it. I mean, you know, we got issues with the family in this country, the issues with the family all over the world. But when we talk about what we have allowed, we're the #1 in the world, by the way, for child sex trafficking. #1 in the world, right? It's unbelievable. And so you kind of go, how do we ever get here? How do we ever get here? And I will tell you, it's, to me, this is, I use this phrase, local action and national impact. You know, you got to get involved in your counties, your towns, your churches, whatever. People have to understand, all of us, you know, and people come up to me all the time and go, thank you for your service. You know, my father served in World War II or Vietnam. You know, I never served. And I am very humbled by that, but I always try to turn the conversation back to you to say, how are you serving? So thank you, but now what are you doing to serve? Because we have a responsibility as citizens in this country, because we're we the people, right? We are we the people. That's what it says in the Declaration. That's what it says. It is so strong in our Constitution about our responsibility. Yet we have reneged on that responsibility. And what we have done, frankly, for the last 75 years, and it's gotten worse. It actually got worse over these last probably 10 or 15, but now we're kind of going through this great awakening in this country, which is a big deal, and it's good, but we still have work to do, okay? And what happened was we just sort of said, I'm going to go do, you know, get my thing, do my thing, and, you know, the politicians, whatever, they're all corrupt, right? They're all corrupt. We've always said Sacramento, the county seat, or Washington, D.C., man, they're just corrupt. And we have these conversations. You've all been in them. I've been in them. Every single adult in this room has been in some conversation where they've gone, man, they're just a bunch of corrupt people, you know, and I'd use other words, but I'm in a church. So we've all done that. We have all done that and said that and been in those conversations. And what we have to do in this country is we have to start to decide to get involved. So it's like you're here, you know, you're here. That's fine. I mean, but you're here for a reason. Either you're curious, right? You're curious because you got this thing, you know, that's going on. And I appreciate, you know, when Boone talked about how far did you drive, because I talked to a couple of folks that came up, you know, I know a couple of you drove a few hours to get here, so we're so appreciative of you being here. So you're curious, right? Well, I can tell you, I have been around this country. I've probably been, in the last 4 years, 4.5 now, to over 100 cities in this country. And I'm not talking about cities like Chicago or Las Vegas. I've been there. But places like Wichita or Bow, Washington, which is up in the furthest northern part of Washington. We went to a big old, called the Cowboy Church up there a while back. You know, it's great. These are places where Americans are at, and everybody is hungry. Everybody is hungry because they're looking, you know, if you just watch a little bit of news, you're kind of looking and going, what the heck is what is happening? You know, and we can call people names, which, you know, and I'm guilty of that. We can do all these things, but we have to then stand back, take a step back, and say, okay, what am I doing about it? Because if you do nothing, that's a lame excuse. In fact, it's not an excuse. It's just you're doing nothing. You know, I mean, you can pray, that's fine. You know, I always say prayer is the most powerful weapon. But at a certain point in time, we got to get off of our knees, right? God created warriors, right? God created warriors. So we are, and I'll use this metaphor and watch my time. So because I want to make sure, because you know, like I'm a you know, maniac about time. But I have, for those that can't see, I have size 12 shoes. Okay. And I'm standing with, you know, half of my feet off of the edge of this stage right here, right? And I do this sort of as a metaphor because normally I will stand down in the valley, right? The valley of the shadow of death, right? Psalm 23. But I'll use this metaphor to say this is where the United States of America is at. Okay, we are at a point where we almost lost this country. Okay, so all of the people that have griped at the pastor for having this event, or all the other churches that are out there going, well, it's too political. They're the problem. They are the problem. So, but we're at a place now in this country, and you can see it. And what I want you to do is, whenever you can, watch our president as he speaks and answers questions. I mean, you know, number one, he answers them off the top of his head all the time, right? We would never see that from other people who have occupied that office. But, you know, you watch and listen to him, and you can feel in him like anger. You can feel passion. You can see the love that he has for the people that he's trying to deal with. You can see the love that he has for this country. You know, he is, and I used to introduce him at giant rallies as the most imperfect guy you're ever going to vote for. And people would go nuts. They go, hey, this is great. This is what we want. We do not want these people who pretend to be perfect politicians, right? We don't need them. They have gotten us to this stage in our country, and we're not in a good spot. We are not. This man is trying to do all that he can, and one of the priorities, and we're right there, and we've been working hard for years with this nonprofit, this, you know, Get in the Fight Summit. We've been doing this for years, you know, against a system that wasn't helping us. Now we have a system that's helping us. We're in direct engagement with them, and it's like feels better. I mean, are they perfect? No, because it's a government. It's still a bureaucracy, and there's still challenges. That's why we have the flexibility. But we only have the flexibility to be able to operate if you get involved, okay? We will pop in here. We're going to pop off for the next 2 days, and then we're going to pop out, and we're going to go to another state, and we're going to be champions in another place. We're going to do it again, and we're going to do it again, and do it again. What we have to pray for is that somebody in this room listens, right? It only takes one, right? It only takes one. But somebody in this room listens and says, that's me. I'm going to get involved. I'm going to take this charge, and I'm going to go with it. It may not be everybody. Some of you will let this all sink in over the next couple of days and go, I don't know, you know. And a lot of people are like that. Human nature is kind of, you know, I'm going to let somebody else do it because I don't want to have my name in the headlines of the newspaper, or I don't want to have somebody at work berate me, or I don't want to have my friends not invite me over. Give me a break. You know, I mean, you don't know what I've been through, okay? And I have, you know, when I said Psalm 23, I have walked through that valley of the shadow of death. I mean, physically, mentally, spiritually, and I'm standing on the stage, right? I'm standing on this, you know, in this beautiful church today to tell you that if you don't find something in yourself, right, to stand up and say, you know what? I'm going to get more involved in my church. I'm going to get more involved in my community. I'm going to go find somebody that's doing this, right? That's working in this field or working in this arena, and I'm just going to go see what they're doing. And maybe they need some volunteers. Maybe you have some skill set, right? Maybe you have some skill set that you're not even aware of yet, right? And you're here for a reason. You're drawn here for a reason. Take advantage of that. Last point that I'll make. I mentioned this to the pastor, that it gets back to this separation of church and state, which is totally, it's BS. So, I mean, whatever. But in our Bill of Rights, okay, we have the First Amendment, right? Everybody will go, well, First Amendment, if I gave you a test, multiple choice, and whatever, you would all pick, for the most part, like 90% of you, unless you're really studied, you'd pick freedom of speech, right? First Amendment, freedom of speech, right? There's 5 parts to the First Amendment, 5. And the First Amendment was probably the amendment that they argued the longest over. Okay, that when you look at the diaries and you look at the writings of the founders, and they're talking about the Bill of Rights, right? Which is a function. Our Bill of Rights is a function of the 10 Commandments. Most of you don't know that, okay? Because they took and they derived about 75% of the Constitution, our Declaration, and the Bill of Rights from the Bible itself. It's documented. It's not made up stuff, right? So the first component of the Bill of Rights, or the First Amendment, first component of the First Amendment is the freedom of religion. Because they wanted to, it was such a strong desire, they had such a strong desire when they were arguing and debating and trying to decide what's the direction of this country. And they didn't say that everybody's going to be Christian. They didn't say that that's going to be our religion like they have over in England at the time, right? What they wanted to do, and they studied every single religion. You got to read Hamilton, you read some of these Federalist papers, you read their papers. I mean, they went back, one of them actually wrote a paper on Zoroastrianism, which comes out of, it's one of the oldest, in fact, it is the oldest documented religion in the history of the world, and it actually comes out of a small place in Iran, or at that time, Persia. So it's fascinating what they did to look at religion before they made the decision that that's going to be the very first thing that we're going to put into the very First Amendment of our Bill of Rights. And there's so much history about that, because they wanted to make sure that they gave people, because they were persecuted. They were persecuted for their religious beliefs for a couple of hundred years. A couple of hundred years. Like I said, we didn't create this thing over a 3-day weekend, right? And they came to this country, and they made a decision. They said, okay, we're going to open it up. We're going to open it up. But one of the things that they also talked about, as they describe it in the Declaration of Independence, when we go through that, which takes you about 3.5 minutes if you're an average reader like me. Okay, so try to find that somewhere and read it. When they created that, they then started to really look at, we do want people that come into this country, and they all wrote about this, all of them. John Jay is probably one of the best ones in Federalist Paper number 2 and number 3. And he wrote about this, and the idea is, when you come to this country, we want you to love the country, but we want you to accept what we have as a set of laws, right? Not canon law, which is the Catholic Church, or not Sharia law, which is the Islamic model, right? But our constitutional law. So if you follow the Constitution, you follow our rule of law, you're gonna, and you're a good capitalist, or you're whatever you are, a good business person, fine. You got strong families, you got strong convictions, good. But you come to this country and you accept how we are as a nation. The fight that we are in, this good versus evil fight, it is real, and it's a real fight. And it's this idea of globalism versus, the nationalism, and the media will go, nationalist, you're a nationalist, and they'll make that like an ugly thing. And actually what it means is that you just believe in your country. You believe in your country, and you believe in your sovereign borders, you believe in the sovereignty of your nation, right? That's what it is. That's what it is. And I can tell you, I can probably tick off maybe on 2 hands of 184 to, on a good day, we probably have 184, 185 countries on the, on the planet right now, probably 2 hands, so 10 that are true, that are led by people that believe in the idea of their own sovereignty, right? And one of them is the United States of America, and man, were we under attack. And we're going to, continue to be under attack by evil, by demonic forces, okay? And so I won't go into all the Bible stuff there. I know we got great pastors here that are coming down here from up north too, so thank you for being here. I mean, because I always get in trouble if I talk about the Bible, Well, I mean, I'm like, I have like lawyers that tell me, no, don't say that, don't say that, But what I'm telling you is that you have got to decide, you personally, okay? You personally, you have to make an individual decision about what am I going to do to be a good servant, to be a good citizen in our country, okay? And that's it. It's that simple. It's that simple. And if you don't do that, and there's other people that don't do that, then we end up with what we have, right? And we may not have it. We may not have it for another 250 years. So in order for us to have this beautiful country for another 250 years, in order for the country to step back from where I'm at on this sort of dais up here, back and have a much stronger footing and a much stronger foundation, every single American better wake up and get involved. So God bless you all. God bless America. Thank you very much.